What's up, YouTube? We're starting a new series today. This series is Things I Want to See. First episode, Things I Want to See from Duncan Toys. Alright, number one, I figured we'd start with an easy company to go for. So tell me down in the comments what you think of Duncan Toys, what you want to see from them, and what other companies I should do, things I want to see from. Let's get started with Duncan. So Duncan Toys is the oldest yo-yo manufacturer that's still in existence today. They've done lots of iconic yo-yos, the Butterfly, the Imperial, the Freehand, you know, you name it, there's been a thousand of them. They have sort of a sketchy history a little bit, particularly if we're thinking about Playmax and how they bought them out, etc., etc. I know there's still some hurt feelings on how that all went down. But overall, I think Duncan sponsors an amazing team. I think there are a lot of really, really good players on the Duncan line, particularly like Brian Jardin and, Remy is on Duncan. There's a lot of good players on Duncan, is all I'm saying. A lot of great players on Duncan and a lot of young guys who really are very passionate. I think Duncan does a really good job with that. And I think Duncan does a lot of really good things, but here's the things that I would like to see Duncan do moving forward. Number one, I would like to see Duncan have more modern type yo-yos in shops like Target and Walmart. I talked about it in the Freehand Next Gen review that I would love to see this yo-yo on shelves at Target and Walmart and stuff. I think this is at $16. I think it's a great price point, and it performs like a modern yo-yo. Although it has some vibe, I think it performs like a modern yo-yo, and I would love to see it on shelves at Target because I think that would really sort of spark interest in yo-yo, especially if they also put out a commercial, even if they're just like YouTube ad commercials, put out some commercials. I think that would be phenomenal. The next thing I want to see from Duncan is more updates to their already outlines of yo-yos. So they updated this year the Duncan Pro Z. They updated the spacers. It's still basically the same Pro Z, but the spacers now have more modern response pads, and it comes with, and you can put the size C bearing in the spacers. That does make it an unresponsive yo-yo. You can get that for $10 at Walmart, and I think that's great. However, Duncan has sort of, to me, always been great at responsive yo-yos. That's what I played as a kid, was responsive yo-yos, and I actually really liked the Pro Z when it came out. I liked it responsive. However, I have one problem with the Pro Z, and is that it still uses starburst response. A lot of the, I kind of feel like Duncan just needs to get rid of the starburst response in any yo-yo with a bearing. Literally, if you're gonna put a ball bearing in a yo-yo, I think it's time to just get rid of the starburst response for the Duncan stuff, especially for the Duncan stuff that goes on shelves. Why is that? I think it needs to be replaced with like the silicone friction stickers. The starburst response is rather unreliable unless we're talking about a looping yo-yo, but the gaps are too big in those yo-yos for them to be looping yo-yos because they're meant for you to be able to land them on the string, etc., etc. Starburst response makes it hard to get the yo-yo to come back once you break the stringing. Now, I have tons of extra string, but starburst response kind of burns through string pretty fast too, and it's kind of risky to use a polyester string on a yo-yo with starburst response because that starburst response creates friction, and you can break the string because it'll heat up the string, make it weak, snap the string, and your yo-yo hit the ground and it might break. That sucks. Friction stickers, even if you have to charge a little bit more to update, say, the Butterfly XT and the Pro Z or something, put another $1 on it to put friction stickers in it, I still feel like that is a solid upgrade because at that point, it's going to give you a more solid response, a more even response, and at the same time, going to allow for more modern, responsive play. That's the other thing that, the Pro Z is a great shape for modern responsive play, and for $10, that would be amazing. I would pick one up all the time. I would buy new ones all the time just to kind of throw around. But because it's got starburst response, it's not really that good for it. And it's sort of, it's going to burn through the crappy string that comes with real fast, and then you can't really use polyester on it. So it's really sort of outdated in the sense that because it's got that starburst response, and it's not really even that good for looping because the gap is too wide. So you can't play modern responsive with it because it's not responsive enough. You can't loop with it because it's not responsive enough. and you're burning through strings and can't use polyester, I really think they need to dump the Starburst. I think once we sort of got away from cotton strings on most yo-yos that weren't fixed axle, we needed to also get away from Starburst response. It's fine if you leave the Imperial and the Butterfly with Starburst response. They're $3. But I think anything with a ball bearing needs to just have silicone response pads. And I think Duncan really needs to get on that and update those models that are still using Starburst response, especially the ones that are on shelves in Targets and Walmart, because those will be better yo-yos, and that'll get more people into yo-yo because those yo-yos will perform better. Next thing I want to see from Duncan is more wooden yo-yos. I feel like wood is good. Wood's coming back. Duncan used to do some really good wood back in the 90s. The old wooden Imperials and stuff. I feel like Duncan is really poised more than anybody else to sort of bring back a more modern wooden Imperial or a more modern wooden Butterfly and release those as well, even if they're just sort of specialty in yo-yo stores and they end up costing 15 or 20 bucks. I think that would be great, and because one, it would be very classic. You get your classic wooden Duncan Tournament Edition yo-yos. Those are amazing. People still collect those, and an updated version for 2019 or even 2020 I feel like would be amazing. Even if it's a small run, I think that's something that I would really like to see from Duncan because I want one. That's me personally. And that's just really... I feel like that's really kind of something that, Duncan plays a lot on nostalgia. I feel like that would really be something that would be good for the yo-yo community and for Duncan as well. Other things I want to see from Duncan moving forward are, when it comes to their metal yo-yos, sort of more consistency. I feel like Duncan had a really good run there at in 2016, whenever the Grasshopper came out. Because the Grasshopper came out, and so did the Origami, and those yo-yos were just, oh my god, over the top. Haymaker, they really, 2016, 2017, really just put out some banging yo-yos. Then they kind of scaled it back a little bit, tried to do some more budgety ones again, and the Roadrunner I didn't like so much. The Windrunner was okay. For 30 bucks, it's not bad, but I've seen a lot of them stripped because it's got a really short axles. I haven't stripped mine, but I've seen quite a few stripped ones, and so I'd really like to see Duncan sort of focus on $45, $50 yo-yos and artist signatures particularly, because I feel like that's really where their strengths lie. Brian Jardin's had 2 signatures. They've both been great. Both Grasshoppers, the bimetal one and the monometal one, are fantastic yo-yos. I think when Duncan sticks to, what their awesome team members want and give them signatures, I feel like those yo-yos really are standout yo-yos. And even if they're a little bit more, 45, 50 bucks, I feel like for that price range, they're like, they knock it out of the park. They are absolutely some of the best yo-yos in that $45, $50 price range, regardless of whether we're talking boutique or, mainline like, Duncan Yo-Yo Factory, Recess, the companies that do big runs of yo-yos. I feel like they're absolutely on par with anything in the price range. And I'd rather see them focus on that than on budget metal stuff, because I feel like that category is that market's already sort of flooded with, Top Yo and Magic Yo-Yo and all that stuff. And those yo-yos are cheaper and usually a lot better, just because they already own the company. So I feel like Duncan's just kind of trying to play catch up to those companies who are kind of putting out better budget metal. I think leave that to them. Stick to those like middle of the line $45, $50 yo-yos. Like the Counterpunch, I guess, was a great example of something they did well, although it's not anybody's signature. But you see what I mean. Like, sort of, I'd rather them stay away from the budget metals and stick to more the mid-range metals than the budget metals, because I feel like as much as like everybody wants to like gravitate towards them, they're not necessarily as good as something else you could get in that price range. But once you jump up to that $50 price range, what they're doing is just so good. And there's a lot of people on the Duncan team who I'd like to see have signatures, like Remy and Whippy. I'd like to see those guys have signature yo-yos, even if they're $50 monometals. I would buy those. I would rock those, and I know they'd be good. So I'd rather see Duncan focus on that type of stuff than like the Runner series with the budget metals, because I don't think they're I just don't think that they can get into that market as well. I think their bread and butter really needs to be the $20 and less yo-yos, and then 50 plus. I think that 25 to 50, I think that 25 to 35, $40 range sort of needs to be done by the companies that have their own manufacturing shop, Magic Yo-Yo, Top Yo, Vosen, those kind of companies. I feel like really are putting out the solid budget metal stuff, whereas the Duncan stuff is just sort of not prototype enough. Honestly, I feel like that tends to be the issue. Everyone that's come out, I'm sort of like, man, if only this was different in this way, it would be way better. And that's just because they're not prototyped enough and they're trying to save cost to get them out. So I'd rather they sort of abandon that idea and focus on artist signatures around the $50 mark and the cheap stuff that can be sold in Walmarts and Targets, because that's what gets kids hooked to yo-yo, and that's what we want. We want the community to grow, and we want more kids playing yo-yo, period. Other things I'd like to see from Duncan really is, I know Brian's done a fantastic job with just being out there in the community and stuff, but he's just one man, and Duncan is a huge company. It's the biggest one. So I'd really like to see more Duncan Toys community involvement. There used to be a lot more Duncan commercials and stuff. I feel like that needs to be a thing again, especially when around like nationals and worlds and stuff, where Duncan's sort of a big player in the sponsorship of a big yo-yo contest. So I'm hoping to see a lot more advertising put out at that point in time. I know Brian and those guys don't really have a whole lot to do with that side of things, but I feel like there used to be Duncan commercials, and I would really prefer to see companies that are on that level of like Duncan. I'd really like to see more advertising as well when it comes to like at least like the World Yo-Yo Contest type area, when a lot of new yo-yos are going to come out, a lot of debut stuff. I feel like that's the kind of thing, because a lot of people still just don't know what modern yo-yo play is like. So I feel like Duncan is really positioned, if anybody is, to sort of push that a little more. But overall, I really like Duncan. I think Duncan does a great job. I've thrown Duncans my whole life. I'll continue to throw Duncan yo-yos. This is not a harp on Duncan type of video. I really love Duncan. I kind of get a lot of what comes out from Duncan, and I enjoy it, and I keep it. But as the OG and one of the biggest yo-yo companies, if not the biggest still, I think that there's a few things that I would like to see from them moving forward. Me, as a person who buys a lot of yo-yos, a few things that I would like to see from them moving forward, but I think they're still poised and doing a really good job in everything that they're putting out and everything that they're doing. This is just some suggestions from me, because I pay attention to this stuff for whatever reason. But that's going to do it for me today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Cheers to you. I'll see you next time.